Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Visual Studio Toolbox. I'm your host, Leslie Richardson.
And I'm your host, Robert Green.
And guest, Phil Japixie.
And last but not least,
I guess that's me. I'm Brian Randall.
Hey, y'all. And welcome to the continuation of our mini-series on automated software testing. Last episode, in case you skipped it, we were talking specifically about automated software testing and how you can apply that in your Azure DevOps environment. And this time, if that's not floating your boat, we're going to talk about how you can run your unit tests using GitHub Actions. So what's going on with GitHub Actions and what is it? Why should people use it?
Well, GitHub Actions is the CI/CD engine that is available for customers using GitHub.com or even GitHub Enterprise Server. It also is the workflow engine for GitHub. So it's a way to automate tasks within GitHub, managing issues, your packages, whatever makes you happy. So it's a multifaceted tool, but it is GitHub's #1 CI/CD platform today that people use when they use GitHub.com.
Cool. So before we get into it, is there a reason why somebody might want to consider using one or the other? So GitHub Actions versus Azure DevOps for their unit test?
Right now, if you're going to probably pick the one that's closest to your code. Azure DevOps has a mechanism for managing code, either using the traditional Team Foundation Server version control or Git, whereas GitHub is focused exclusively on allowing you to work with GitHub repos. That said, there is technology. You can basically keep your chocolate and peanut butter separate, or you can mix and match. Azure DevOps has a way to talk to GitHub, and GitHub has ways to talk to Azure DevOps. We really, as Microsoft and GitHub, want to meet you where you're at. So it's what you're most comfortable with and what works for your business. That's probably the best I can say about that.
Cool. It's nice that there's options. So,
yes.
Care to show us how GitHub Actions works?
Absolutely. So if we just jump over to my demo machine, we're going to see that I've got Phil's repo up here. Now, if this was my repo, I could actually jump right into Actions by clicking this button here. But instead, I'm going to make a copy of it and put it into my organization, a place where I keep my code. So I'm just going to click this fork button. And it's going to allow me to take a copy of Phil's code here. And so we'll call software testing from Phil. And I'm going to move it over to one of my organizations that I have here. And I have one down here. We'll put it up in Octobright. We'll put it in my personal account. So we'll just click Create Fork. And now I have a copy of Phil's repo in my environment. So then I'm just going to come over here and click Actions. And right away, we want to get you started easily. And so you'll notice it says, hey, we looked inside your repo, and we think you have some .NET code. You might have a bunch of other things in here, but this is just what we're guessing on. And you'll notice we have one here, build and test a .NET or ASP.NET Core project with C#, rock and roll. So I'll click Configure. And what we're going to see here is that GitHub Actions uses YAML, yet another markup language, YAML 8 markup language. It's basically a text-based markup language that describes what we want to do. So if I scroll down a little bit, you'll see that we've got a text file here that says, okay, we're going to call this name.net. And I'm going to call this channel 9 PJ for Phil. And then you'll see it has an on command. So there's all these different commands over here. And you'll notice there's documentation right here. This is one of those things that really helps you out. Like, well, what does this stuff mean? And it says, oh, okay. So when someone pushes to main or when someone does a pull request to main, I would like to run these jobs. And so we have a job here called build. And then you come down a little further, it says it's going to run on an Ubuntu runner. And one of the things that we want to do is meet you where you're at with GitHub. And so you'll be able to use Ubuntu, macOS, or Windows runners to get your job done. And we also support self-hosted runners where you can run it in your own organization. And then if we go down a little further, we see there's a set of steps. So the first step is we got to get the code from GitHub. onto the runner machine. Then we're going to come down here and get .NET configured, and we're telling it we want to use .NET 6. And then we come down, do a .NET restore, we do a build, and then we run our tests, all ready to go.
Wait, so you're telling me that when code gets checked in, the tests are going to run automatically?
Absolutely.
Is that what you're telling me?
It's magic. Yes, this is the dream, right? We're living the dream that people started in the early 2000s, which is continuous integration. Build early, build often, and then if you're going to go the trouble to build, why not do a little validation? And the most common validation mechanism we use is unit tests. And the key thing here, whenever you're doing this, whether it's on Azure DevOps, GitHub, or something else, there is something else, but you want to make them fast. So we tend to focus on just the unit tests because those are designed to run without external dependencies, run all on the build agent, and they focus on units of code. So unit tests and CI, chocolate and peanut butter, they go together. You got to do it.
So you create your unit tests locally, you run them regularly. This isn't a way for you to never have to write them once and never have to run them again. You run your tests locally so that you know your code is good. You check it into the system, and then the tests run every time you check your code in or anytime anyone else checks their code in, correct?
Exactly. And it really helps prevent that. It worked on my machine scenario where I had it working, but I put in, a local path that was wrong. And then you try and pull it down and then it doesn't work. You're like, Brian, the code doesn't work. Right? We're really using the runners as a sanity check, right? Did you do your job correctly? No typos in your code, does it compile? And then yes, let's go one step further. It compiles,
or maybe I call a method that you wrote and it works on my machine because I have the old version of the method you wrote, and then you completely rewrote the method. And now, although the code works on my machine, it doesn't work in the big picture because I'm not up to date on whatever code you wrote.
Exactly. And that's, this notion of continuous integration, integrate early, integrate often. One of the things we found before we really started doing CI, for old people like Phil and I have been around since the 90s and 80s doing stuff, is that you keep code on your machine. Well, it's that beautiful.
That's before my time altogether, so no worries.
Well, Robert, we didn't want to go back to the 70s and call you out. But.
Yes, and Leslie, thank you for reminding us how old we are to collectively.
You're only as old as you act.
Brian, I have a question about the action. So in the previous episode, you specified so for those that watched the Azure DevOps episode, you specified the path and the project name. So the repo that you have, it's a finished version, so lots of code that hasn't been aired yet, but we only want to run the XUnit samples in Azure. Is that going to run all of the projects? Like how do you specify that with actions?
Right. And this is the key thing to be aware of. If we go back to the code and look at things, it's just doing a .NET restore. So that's going to expect to find something it understands in the local directory. The bottom line is if we run this, and trust me, it'll fail, this will fail, and so will this. Because contextually it doesn't know. They've made a guess to say, hey, maybe your code is all in the root. But we know from experience, and if we open up this tab and go look at the code setup here, we've got an SRC file or folder, and inside it is where your solution is. And so if we grab this path right here, we want to get that to .NET build. So we can do a little clipboard inheritance, go over here, and right after the restore command, paste it in, we'll get a little magic from the clipboard, and understand that YAML is white space sensitive. In other words, these indentations and things matter. And then what I'm going to do here is just put a dot, and that says, okay, from this directory, look for a directory called SRC, and then look for the SLN. So we'll inherit that line of code and bring it down here to build, but our tests aren't in the SLN. What we really want to do is use the XUnit tests. So we'll come over here. Those are called XUnit examples and XUnit examples.csproj. And so we'll come over here and fix that up. And do that. Now what we said, okay, is that we're going to come over here and run only the XUnit tests in that csproj. and we should be good to go. So this is kind of the bare minimum.
Do you need a space? Do you need a space with the cursors flashing?
That is a good example. Yes. Thank you so much.
So have it right off source, but it's not actually source. You have to use a globbing pattern if you do that, right? Line 28. It doesn't.
Oh, it's not a. Oh, sorry. It's source XUnit examples. Is it not?
Oh, you're right. I forgot how my code.
I did it right. No, I did it right.
Yeah, you did. My bad.
Thank you. But Phil did mention something. I'm using explicit paths. You can use glob patterns, which are a syntax using stars, slashes, and other types of variables to actually traverse the directory tree. Now, the downside to traversing directory trees like that is you may pick up something you don't want. And B, if you have a very large repo, that can make your builds slower. So when you do use a globbing pattern, try and get it relative to the repo. And again, Phil's repo is small, but when you have large mono repos like GitHub's repo is 15 gigabytes, or hey, the Windows repo, it's over 300. You don't want to just use a from the root globbing pattern when you do that. But at this point, we should have enough. If we take a look and say, okay, this is what our workflow is going to look like, let's go try it out. And the way this works in GitHub Actions is we're going to save the file and commit it into the repo, into a special folder that the Actions engine knows to look in. So we'll click Start Commit, and I'm going to be wild and crazy. I'm just committing straight to main. Normally we do a pull request. That's good practice, but that's a whole nother discussion we could have later. And if I come over here to Actions, oh, hold on. Did it not save? Okay, we're just going to make sure here. I feel like maybe commit didn't take, so I'm going to click Actions. Let's do it again. Actually, let's do this. I got excited talking, and I wasn't paying attention, so I want to make sure. Yes, it did not take. So I'm going to go back and click that Start Commit button again. Commit new file. There we go.
There we go.
All right. Sorry. Now, if we go look, you'll see that it's created a folder called .github/workflows, and there's the file .net.yaml. If we go to Actions, we'll see that it has kicked off that run because we had that tag that said when a commit is made to main, we are going to kick off a run. And
so that includes when you commit a YAML file, so it's kind of like Inception.
To some degree, yes. But it does give us the flexibility to have changes based upon branches, for example, as well as we can have builds that only run on pull requests and those that only run when things are merged from a pull request domain, for example. There's also the ability to do what's called a workflow dispatch, and that's a way to just manually kick it off by clicking a button. Mm-hmm. And there goes the test, and it looks like it worked. So right there inside the test, you'll see down there, passed, failed, 0, passed 57, skipped 3.
Nice.
It took 284 milliseconds.
And can we see the results of which tests worked and which didn't?
Not with the raw out of the box, and that's because the .NET test doesn't do that, right? If we want to visualize it, we're going to need a little help. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The GitHub Actions community is just amazing, right? We have over 15,000 different actions available in the marketplace that allow us to enhance our workflow with other actions. And so it turns out that
having that side-by-side marketplace and documentation panel next to where you're editing your YAML.
Did you notice? You noticed that, didn't you? Let's go take a look at that. That was awesome.
Save a lot of time.
So if we come in here and click on the edit button, you'll see marketplace. Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. So what if I type publish test results? Okay, so there's a bunch of them in here. It turns out this one I've used before. So we're going to grab this one and see, okay, here's how you set it up. Okay, so let's go look at the full listing. This is a little hard to read right there. Okay, so this tells us what it does. And notice the person who wrote this has it support JUnit, InUnit, XUnit test results, or any type of test result that will spit out what's called a TRX file, which is a test results XML file. So this is option, and it's awesome, excuse me. And so you'll see here, if we look at this block of YAML, if I just copy that and then go back over into my action and go into edit mode. Hello, come on, baby. All right, fine. I'll come over here and I will, oops, sorry. I was getting excited. I went to the history. YAML, edit. There we go. Let's go down here. We're going to add that in. Now notice the squiggly, just like Microsoft Word telling you got a typo, it's telling us, hey, this needs to be indented better. So we're going to come over here and let's indent this in, bring this other one back. So what this does is says, hey, we're going to publish test results. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to use this action. And then this if always says, I want to run this action even if the previous one failed, which might be important if all your unit tests fail. So we want to collect those results. Now we'll come down a little further and we'll get rid of these extra lines. We don't want JUnit, we don't want InUnit. And this is where we get this interesting dilemma. We're doing XUnit, but we need to be able to get the results out our way. And since we're using .NET Test, one of the easiest ways is to actually just say, I want a TRX file. So what we're going to do is come up here to .NET Test, and we're going to add an extra switch. And we're going to tell it to use the logger command. And the logger command asks for how do you want to output the data. So I've used TRX before. And then I'll just do something like log file name equals xtests.trx. You can name it what you want. You can do relative things, and there's lots of different control. And then now the question is, how's it going to find it? And again, this is where the whole globbing pattern could help us. We could do something like, I don't know, maybe a */. But then we run into the issue that, okay, well, what happens if we look too far? Well, it might take a while to find that. So we might actually want to drill down a little further and find it relative to where that code is. So we could do something like src, and then we'll go grab this path here, XUnit examples. And the only reason I know this is I actually tried this kind of stuff before. And it turns out when it spits out the data, it actually outputs it into a folder that's not named exactly the way the person wrote it here. It's in a folder that looks like test results. Oh, and I apologize, my computer's trying to get in the way. So let's come back over here. And it's XUnit. Did I call it XUnit? Sorry.
Xtest, I think.
Xtest, thank you. Not T. Let's just check that. Yes. Okay. So it should be down in a folder like that. Okay. So source XUnit test results. We're going to commit those changes. And so we say update it. And then what we can say here is use a community action to publish to visualize test results. And I committed, so you know exactly what's going to happen there. We go back over to actions. It's going to kick it off, and it's going to run the build again. So we'll give it a second to run. And you'll notice it's going through and doing setup.net, restoring dependencies like before. It's building.
The suspense is killing me.
Well, it's teasing me. It's actually running quite quick if you think about it. What's all the magic that happens on the back?
Uh-oh. Could not find a text log. Could not find a test log.
Find the TRX one. All right. So this is one of those fun things that it's all about getting the path right. And again, getting the pattern correctly. So what I'm going to do here is cheat a little and say, Well, I know the way we do this on the runner is that we start out, and let's go into edit mode, and let's come to the front of the file. That we actually have this home directory is where it runs things, and then we have runner/work, and then the name of the repo. So this is software testing from Phil, and that in turn has an extra folder path. And then at that point, we should be at the root, so it should be able to find the file without having to search. And I think I didn't do a double star is what happened. Now, this is one of those places where I'd like maybe see a little more assistance and helping me with paths. You will find, in all honesty, as someone who spent some time on both Azure DevOps YAML and GitHub Actions YAML, that paths are your biggest pain point. It really just is being able to get the tools to find the thing you're looking for.
Are the two YAML flavors different between Azure DevOps and GitHub?
Yes.
Okay.
It'd been nice if they'd agreed upon it, but they both started their cycles at different points before Microsoft and GitHub became a little extra friendly. And they do have two engineering teams today that kind of do their thing the way they want to do it.
Okay. But if you know one, just like if you know one XAML, you can learn the rest. If you know one YAML, you can learn the rest.
It is. And that is the one benefit of this. Is if we look at some of the other engines that are out there, YAML is very common for this type of behavior, for CI and CD. Oh, man.
You know what? We get the we know the tests work, right? And
well, no, they blew up.
They blew up?
It says your test blew up.
Well, they worked before, so it must, the only thing that changed was you.
Oh, it's a fat finger. There's
a colon and a semicolon.
No.
We did not look at the error. I assumed the error was because of the bit we added, when the reality is I busted the thing. Okay. I know we're under time pressure here, so one more run, just one more. Let me just fix that last typo.
Third time's the charm.
Again.
Oh, look at that.
Evil.
Is it a colon or a semicolon?
I do want a semicolon to be there.
Okay.
And if you're struggling with the syntax, actually the .NET command line tooling is very well documented as well. So you would type in .NET space test space -H, and it'll show you. You can even do -L -H to get more specific help on the logger itself.
Now we're going to slow down this last one, win or fail, and show the results, because the test results will show the file and outputs. And so we can look at that path and just verify that, if it doesn't work the way we want to, that if I screwed up something else. But we're almost there.
You said win or fail, but a fail is a win, right? As long as you fail fast. And we've been failing fast frequently.
Following best practices.
Hey, the test passed, and we found our test results.
Yay!
Hey, there we go. Right on.
Okay, so for want of a semicolon instead of a colon and a properly globbed pattern, we would be good to go. So there you go.
Excellent.
There you go. A few tries. It's really nice, though. The runners ran really good. These are all cloud-based runners, and I get a certain amount of minutes for free when I'm doing public open source work. If you do private work, just like with Azure DevOps, you got to fund it a little. But yeah, it's very straightforward.
That's awesome. So if people want to get started with GitHub Actions, or if they want to add on to the marketplace with some even more great YAML additions, where should they go?
Well, you'll note that if you come to github.com, you can get started. Make sure you have a GitHub account. And let me do this. Let's go to, we'll use Google since we're at GitHub just for fun here. And we'll look for GitHub Actions docs. And you'll find that the docs are really wonderful. And they cover all the good stuff here. How to learn, examples, using, publish, etc. And All the way down at the bottom, there is creating actions, and this will cover how you build a custom action and how you publish to the GitHub Marketplace, which is free.
Sweet. Well, that is really exciting. And I like that people have the option of GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps for their unit testing needs. And both seem like very valid options for automated software testing.
They really are. And again, we want to, both GitHub and Microsoft want to meet you where you're at. And again, you can do it all in Azure DevOps. You can do it all in GitHub. Or as I said, you can mix chocolate and peanut butter, and you can mix and match whatever works for you, because we have the ability to use GitHub Actions with Azure DevOps, or the reverse, Azure DevOps can get code out of GitHub and use Azure Pipelines. So lots of flexibility to let you do what you want to do. And when it's .NET, we have great support on both platforms.
Great. Well, Brian, thank you so much for being here these last 2 episodes. That was some really good, important stuff, especially when it comes to automated software testing, as this larger series has been about. So it makes sense that we'd be talking about automated testing on a series of that name. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, that's
cool.
Yeah,
thanks for coming, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And Phil, thanks for writing all the code. I had the relatively easy part, just fixing paths.
Yep, shout out to Phil for also helping write the code. And stay tuned, because this is not the end of our series. We are going to continue on. We're going to be covering Playwright and a couple other things in the automated software testing world. So until next time, happy coding, y'all.